You've seen them on the shelves, you might even have a bottle in your cabinet right now. Omega-3s. But have you ever stopped and wondered, does this stuff really work for my brain? Today, we're cutting through all the hype. We're going to dive into this massive scientific review to see what the highest level of evidence actually tells us about omega-3s and our cognitive health. So, to really get why this all matters, let's just take a second to look at the big picture. And believe me, the stakes are incredibly high. Right now, as we speak, over 55 million people around the globe are living with dementia. That number is it's staggering. And it's on track to jump to 78 million by 2030. So this isn't some far-off problem. It's a very real global health crisis that's happening right now. And it's not just the human cost. The economic impact is, well, it's just as massive. The cost of managing these neurocognitive disorders is already in the hundreds of billions. But look at this. It's projected to hit an almost unimaginable $1.6 trillion by 2050 in the US alone. I mean, that's a tremendous burden on families, on our entire healthcare system. So, what are we really talking about when we say cognitive function? What's actually at stake here? Well, it's everything. It's not just one thing. It's the entire toolbox of mental skills we use every single day to navigate our world. From remembering a simple grocery list to solving a really tough problem at work. It's the very essence of how we think, learn, and live. Okay, so faced with this reality, it's no wonder we're all looking for something, anything to protect these vital functions. And in that search, one supplement has become a real superstar, omega-3s. You see them everywhere, right? So many people take them daily, hoping to kind of build a fortress around their brain health as they get older. But why? What's the thinking behind it? Well, to be fair, the theory behind it is actually pretty solid. Our brains are incredibly hungry for fats, especially these two omega-3s you've probably heard of, DHA and EPA. They are literally the building blocks for our brain cells. They help keep the cell membranes flexible, which is key for our neurons to fire off signals the way they're supposed to. On top of that, they have these really powerful anti-inflammatory effects. And that's a huge deal because we now know that inflammation in the brain is a major driver of cognitive decline. But that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? A great theory is one thing, but does it actually hold up when you put it under the microscope of serious scientific testing? So let's look at what the highest level of evidence, from one of the most comprehensive analyses ever done, actually has to say. And I want to be really clear here. This isn't just one more study. What we're looking at today is a meta-analysis. That's a study of studies. It's a huge deal. The researchers use this incredibly rigorous system called GRADE to assess the quality of all the evidence, which basically makes this a new gold standard. And maybe most importantly, they looked at dose response. In other words, they asked the question, does taking more actually do more? And just look at the scale of this thing. This wasn't a weekend project. The researchers started with over 4,500 scientific records. They had to painstakingly filter all of that down, screening thousands of abstracts, reading dozens and dozens of full papers, until they were finally left with the 58 best, most well-conducted trials. This, right here, is what a truly thorough scientific investigation looks like. All right, so this is it, the moment of truth. After all that work, after crunching all the data from those 58 trials, what did they find? Which parts of our brain function actually got a real measurable boost from omega-3s? Let's break it down. Okay, first up, a big, clear win for what's called primary memory. Think of this as your brain's short-term sticky note. It's what you use to hold information in your head for just a moment, like when someone tells you a phone number and you have to dial it right away. The study found a real positive effect here, and this is the important part. The evidence was rated as high certainty. In the world of science, that's a huge stamp of approval. And there was another big win, this time for visuospatial skills. Now, this sounds complicated, but it's just your brain's ability to understand where things are in space. Think about reading a map, or parking your car, or even putting together some IKEA furniture. Again, the researchers found a significant improvement. And again, it was backed by high certainty evidence. So that's 2 for 2 on the big wins. But it wasn't all good news. For what we call executive functions, these are your brain's CEO, the skills like planning, problem solving, and self-control, well, the meta-analysis found no significant overall effect. And this is a really crucial takeaway. Omega-3s are not some kind of silver bullet for every single aspect of how our brain works. Okay, so this table really lays it all out. It's like the final scorecard. You can see those 2 big wins right at the top. primary memory and visuospatial skills, both with high certainty. Awesome. Then you see some other areas like perceptual speed that showed some improvement, but the evidence was only moderate. And then, look at the bottom. For really important things like attention and executive function, there was either no effect at all, or the evidence was so weak that we just can't be confident in the results. But this is where the study gets really interesting and, frankly, groundbreaking. Because it turns out the question isn't just if you should take omega-3s. The real question is how much. The researchers uncovered what you could call the secret ingredient, the one thing that explains why past studies have been so all over the place. And that secret ingredient is dosage. And wow, does it make a difference? Look at this comparison. At lower doses, we're talking under 1,000 milligrams a day, the benefits were pretty much minimal or even non-existent for memory. But when people in the studies took higher doses, over that 1,000 milligram mark, that's when things changed. That's when you start to see a significant, measurable boost in things like primary memory and those visuospatial skills. So, what's the magic number? What's the sweet spot? Well, according to this massive analysis, the most consistent and powerful effects were seen in this range right here, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 milligrams per day. That seems to be the dosage window where the benefits really shine. But hold on, because it's not always as simple as more is always better. This quote from the study points to something really fascinating. For overall cognitive ability, kind of a general measure of brain power, the benefits went up and up as the dose increased, but only to a certain point. After that, they actually started to curve back down. So it really suggests there's a delicate balance we need to find. Okay, that was a lot of data, so let's just pause and boil this all down. What does this all mean for you? What are the key takeaways from this massive study? All right, here's the bottom line. First, the strongest, most certain evidence we have shows that omega-3s can really help with specific things, namely your short-term memory and your spatial skills. Second, and this is maybe the biggest news, dose is absolutely critical. The benefits really seem to kick in somewhere in that 1,000 to 2,500 milligram range. But also remember, this is not a miracle pill. It didn't seem to help with things like executive function or attention. And finally, as always in science, this is a huge step forward, but it's not the final word. The research is always evolving. You know, what a deep dive like this really shows? It's just how powerful and how surprisingly specific the effects of a single nutrient can be on our brain. And it leaves you with this really fascinating question, right? If this is what we found just by putting omega-3s under the microscope, what other incredible secrets to brain health are still hiding out there, waiting for us to discover them in our nutrition?